We pray for our enemies. We trust in the one. We trust in the one.
We are the ones who named ourselves Homo sapiens. This sign is a symbol of our desperate desire to make everything as safe as possible. I imagine it was put here with good intent by a parent whose child suffers from food allergies. If you look at the human condition for long enough, sometimes it can just feel a little bit embarrassing when we realize just how much more wise, for instance, sea mammals seem to be than we are. We are the ones who named ourselves Homo sapiens in reference to our wisdom, and somehow we are the most successful and least wise of all the creatures on this planet. We come to understand this lack of wisdom in ourselves first. For if we are only pointing our fingers at the other unwise Homo sapiens, then we are right in the same boat that we pretend that we're not in. We have created in ourselves a culture of entitlement and dependency. To discover this, we have to discover it in ourselves. This word entitlement may not be what you think it means. The pyramid schemes, centralized government, where somehow we lost connection with our tribal roots. And then we created religions which became exclusive and hurtful and hateful. After a lifetime of study, these things have become very, very clear to me, and they seem to be getting closer to the root of the problems that we have today. There are many, many fires burning. The devil's in the details. There are all these details about our suffering, and sometimes we devote ourselves to putting out one of these fires. But there's a fire down below. And this great fire down below, as I have heard it described, is this sense of separation that we feel. We are the species that somehow believes ourselves to be separate from nature. We believe ourselves to be static somehow in this great evolution. And there is a great, great lack of wisdom in the midst of that. And after this lifetime of study, which has led me to this very, very simple and clear understanding of the human condition, it is now time for me to begin to do my part in assisting us to free ourselves from this great delusion. I'm an artist, I'm a musician, and therefore I must keep playing and I must keep telling the parables. Einstein said that we cannot possibly solve these problems that we created from the same level of consciousness from which we created them. So, how will you serve this great purpose, this great cause? Any one religion can only serve as a springboard to our understanding of the true nature of reality. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't do them. We need the springboard. Devote yourself fully to your belief system. Exhaust yourself. If you have not exhausted yourself on many fronts, then you really have no connection to the truth. It is in this exhaustion of self that we find ourselves sharing in this ridiculous human condition. And this is what some people have called the fall. The incapacity of humanity to respect the earth and its fellow being. We live in a time of drastic opinions, low education, and great consumption. We are ridiculous. And somehow we have to peacefully and generously and kindly come to an understanding about who we truly are. We must exhaust ourselves in these systems that we have created, and we must also eventually find ourselves creating new systems, new relationships, new ways of relating to the world and the people and all the other beings in it. If we come into our intelligence before our compassion, then we are bound to exhaust ourselves in some kind of self-righteous pursuit, whether that be rational or mystical. If we come into compassion ahead of our intelligence, then we become that useless bleeding heart. I left conservative, right-wing, fundamentalist, Bible Belt Empire Christianity because I knew there was something terrible, disgusting, and violent about it that I felt, in spite of my great need for salvation and relationship with God. In left progressivism, I discovered a self-righteousness with a different face, yet a self-righteousness nonetheless. There are ideas which seep into the soil that is our collective human consciousness. These ideas are the groundwater, which is available for the growing seeds of our burgeoning minds. As we become self-aware, the roots of our souls push down deep. There is nowhere we can run from our own insanity, except in the refuge of the one being, the sacred nature of being, that which somehow caused consciousness to spring from what we call non-consciousness. Some say first cause. I'm not asking you to believe what I believe about this primary source. I'm just saying it's worth an inquiry. In order to study the physical world, we must first study our own consciousness and marvel at that consciousness, because it is the true teacher, and everything that we perceive in the external world will come through that consciousness. So this is the first place of study. You are not alone if you have been totally turned off by the deadly, self-righteous religions which we have created. And the path is to discover that self-righteousness in ourselves, because if we're only pointing a finger at the religious storytellers, then we're really only pointing a finger at ourselves. Even our inquiries into the physical reality, into physics, have now shown us that we are one, and everything depends on this I am, the observer within. We are the species who have called ourselves lovers of the word. We created abstract language, symbolic language. We created the idea of love and God as we observed ourselves in our great violence as testament to the Torah, the Old Testament, where we see ourselves going to war and justifying our actions by saying, God told us to do this. And then we discovered through eugenics based off of Darwinism that we'll do the same thing with our so-called rational, logical mind. We thought science was going to save us, and then we realized that it couldn't. We are to transcend the rational, we are to transcend the pluralism, and we are to come in to the great cosmic mind, the great Christ mind.